Oakland wants to create safer streets for pedestrians, residents, businesses, and visitors in Chinatown. Today, we'll be explaining the first draft of street designs for the Chinatown Complete Streets Plan. These plans are only preliminary. We're still taking community feedback on them, so these designs are not final. Later draft designs will continue to be adjusted through 2026, and construction will likely not start until 2030. This first look at these potential street improvements is for 9th Street, Webster Street, Harrison Street, and is part of a wider city initiative to improve pedestrian safety. Looking at 9th Street between Broadway and Franklin, we are proposing changing one of the travel lanes to parallel parking, expanding the sidewalk for the heavy pedestrian activity, adding in a loading zone, upgrading the pedestrian scramble at Franklin intersection, which includes a painted curb extension similar to what we see at Madison and Oak around Lake Merritt Park. Continuing down 9th Street between Franklin and Webster Street, we are continuing to repurpose a travel lane for an expanded, pedestrian space, which would be painted zone, repurposing the parallel parking, but we would still maintain the parallel parking right next to it as well. We would have only two travel lanes here. We would again upgrade the existing uh, intersection at Webster Street and build full concrete bulb outs at the other intersection sides. Continuing down 9th Street between Webster and Harrison, we will be building out a full concrete extension on the sidewalk extension on the south side of the street, adding in a new pedestrian scramble at the Harrison Street, and building out a full concrete curb extension on the west side to facilitate crossing across Harrison Street. Still looking at 9th Street between Harrison and Alice Street, we will be upgrading the existing bike lanes to parking protected bike lanes along the street, and then enhancing the Alice intersection by adding concrete islands to protect bicyclists and pedestrians on the south side, and painted curb extensions on the north side, similar to what we already see at Oak and Madison around Lake Merritt Park. Continuing down 9th Street between Alice and Jackson, we will be continuing the parking protected bike lane on the south side of the street, adding in a protected intersection with concrete islands for pedestrians and bicyclists. And on the northwest corner, we'll do another painted bulb out to shorten crossing distance for pedestrians. On 9th Street between Jackson and Madison, we'll be continuing the upgraded parking protected bicycle lane on the south side, upgrading the existing painted curb extensions to concrete islands on the south side, and upgrading all pedestrian crossings at the Jackson intersection to make it easier for pedestrians. And lastly, between Madison and Oak Street, we will be continuing the upgraded parking protected bike lane on the south side of 9th Street. And we'll be adding in a new painted curb bulb out on the northwest corner of Oak Street. This street will tie into already finalized plans for the Lake Merritt transit-oriented development, but will bring in a suite of safety improvements for pedestrians and bicyclists between Oak and Fallon Street. Moving on to Webster Street, there's not a lot going on between 6th and 7th, but between 7th and 8th Street, we will be adding in curb extensions to shorten crossing distance on the east side of Webster Street, enhancing the existing pedestrian scramble, and adding in new sidewalk widening on the west side of Webster Street. Between 8th Street and 9th Street, we are proposing doing sidewalk widening on the east side of Webster Street, adding in concrete sidewalk extensions at the intersections of 9th Street, enhancing the existing pedestrian scramble, and adding in a painted sidewalk extension to shorten crossing distance as well. Between 9th Street and 10th Street, we are proposing continuing to widen the sidewalk on the east side of the street, adding in large curb bulb outs at the 10th Street intersection on both sides, a new pedestrian scramble at 10th Street, and extending the sidewalk in front of the Pacific Renaissance Center to facilitate shorter, safer crossing distance. While hard to see in these plans between 10th Street and 11th Street, we are also proposing to widen the sidewalk on the east side of the street and adding full concrete extension on 3 intersections highlighted here below to facilitate shorter crossing distance for pedestrians. Between 11th and 12th Street, we are proposing upgrading the existing buffered bike lanes to parking protected bike lanes on the west side of Webster Street, as well as adding in a concrete island and painted bulb out extension at 12th Street to shorten crossing distance for bicyclists and pedestrians. Between 12th Street and 13th Street, we are proposing continuing the parking protected bike lanes on the west side of Webster Street, adding in a concrete curb extension, a concrete island, and a painted curb extension to facilitate safer crossings for pedestrians and bicyclists. And finally, between 13th and 14th Street, we are proposing upgrading the buffered bike lanes to parking protected bike lanes on the west side of the street that will tie into the new protected bike lanes that are currently being built on 14th Street. Moving on to Harrison Street, between 6th Street and 7th Street, Alameda County is working on a large capital improvement project around the freeway. Please learn more about what the county is doing on their website. Between 7th and 8th Street, we are proposing repurposing a travel lane to add in more diagonal parking between this block on the west side of the street and a new pedestrian scramble at the 8th Street intersection. Between 8th Street and 9th Street, we are proposing to continue adding in angled parking on the west side of the street, a new pedestrian scramble at Harrison, and a concrete curb extension to facilitate shorter crossing distance. Between 9th Street and 10th Street, while we will be maintaining parallel parking on both sides of the streets, we will be reducing down to 2 lanes, one left turning lane onto 10th Street and one through lane to continue down Harrison Street, since this is the section where Harrison Street becomes one-way to two-way. Between 10th Street and 11th Street, we will be maintaining parallel parking on the east side of Harrison Street, but adding in some angled parking on the west side, as well as maintaining and expanding a commercial loading zone on Harrison Street. Between 11th Street and 12th Street, we are proposing adding in new parking protected bicycle lanes on both sides of the street to connect our existing bicycle network on 11th Street to the new bicycle network on 14th Street. Between 12th Street and 13th Street, we are proposing continuing the parking protected bicycle lane on both sides of the street. And lastly, between 13th and 14th Street, we are proposing continuing the parking protected bicycle lanes on both sides of the streets to tie in the bicycle lanes on 11th Street to the new bicycle lanes being constructed on 14th Street. Thank you for watching, and I hope this helped you understand the proposals better. Please let me know what you think and how we can improve these plans to fit the community's needs.